My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is Thursday, October 31st, 2024. This is documenting the demonic and highly criminal system of federal group stalking and monitoring that is ceaselessly underway in the state of California. You are witnessing the prosecution of the state of California. With regard to what is indeed demonic, the prosecution, the evidence that the state is engaging in, literally a state is engaged in stalking an American citizen. That's what group stalking is. The state of California is a stalker. The state of California is a sex offender. The state of California is literally the breaking down of understanding mental illness outside of the propaganda that we are conditioned regarding mental illness and what mental illness looks like and behaves like. There is a whole reality that is not being honestly discussed and expounded upon, and that's because there is a very specific agenda to make sure and paint and depict mental illness in a particular way where those that are in charge of creating that narrative are literally suffering from the mental illness as it is exposed while the state of California is engaged in group stalking, which is demon possession. The effect of being demon possessed on a human being, it is literally in the secular referred to what would be described and understood and studied as mental illness. The decision making, the personality defect, the mind state of those that are engaging in the pattern of conduct, the behavioral patterns, the type of person that engages in group stalking, the necessary mindset that you are maintaining that is required to engage in the pattern of conduct is revealing mental illness. And that is not a part of the discourse regarding mental illness. Mental illness is in many ways, falsely depicting spiritual gifts, the ability to discern demon possession, by the way, as being some sort of form of mental illness, such as paranoid schizophrenia. And I want to be clear, it is a method of criminal defamation. The pattern of conduct is designed to falsely depict an American citizen as suffering from a mental illness when it is in every regard the entity that is mentally ill group stalking. And when I'm referring to the entity, that's exactly what I mean, because the government is acting in concert with the constituents of the state, masquerading as a free society. This is maliciously occurring as everyday life. Nothing to see here, folks. You're looking at traffic. You're looking even at air traffic. You're looking at what are people shopping in the store. You're looking at what are people walking down the street. And I've shown you the pattern of conduct. I've opened your eyes to the specific environment that surrounds. You are with a trained eye and recognizing and paying more attention to your environment, not to create a sense of paranoia and fear, but to be aware of the malice, or what Satan, by the way, who is a spirit, who uses people and is present in the environment that you are now cognizant of to engage in this conduct, demonic activity right in front of your face. And why the government does it, the government's engaging in criminal conduct outside of any constitutional basis to do so. The government is literally the psychopathic personality disorder that is falsely depicting a targeted individual that is in fact being followed by strangers, that is in fact being pursued by things such as helicopters. The pattern of conduct has shown you the hallmark of stalking in California includes the use of planes. That's exposing the mental illness of the demon that's flying that helicopter, as opposed to any mental illness of a targeted individual who, by the way, has evidence to prove that, in fact, stalking is underway using helicopters. The only way that this sort of tragic injustice has any traction, is able to continue for this long, is because extreme abuse of power is necessary. You have every level of government that's engaged in group stalking in California. And while a company, while a community, while a government body, while a government department or agency is engaging in a very unique pattern of conduct, it is necessarily speaking to and incriminating at the same time, not just that person, but that entire department. You have to have that which is complicit in order for this to occur. There is no secret with regard to the expenditures included with the use of planes and helicopters outside of the times published regarding the departures and arrivals of planes at an airport. And the zoning areas, particularly over, this is very common sense, a senior citizen community, literally the address between the senior citizen community and the nearest airport, where the entity is in every manner where you're looking at it. It is clearly targeting, just applying common sense. But based on recognizing the specific environment and recognizing the pattern of conduct by the entity, you're understanding amplified audible activity, which is demonic. It's not the natural noise level volume of any and everything under a fake sun in engineered light, which you have before the P.O.C. have ignorantly confused with just the environment around you, because you're going to work, you're the hustle and bustle. You're not paying attention to the fact that your shadow is upright surrounding you. You're not paying attention to that at all, I guarantee it. But it's not normal light activity. And anything happening in that light activity is accomplishing what is a surveillance system that also employs communication devices. And that's in violation with regard to existing federal laws. The government is masquerading as having authority, such as probable cause or reasonable suspicion, facts that they are, having some sort of fact-based information based on what they can naturally have access to, because no demon is going to admit that they know what you're doing and they're not even looking at you. You're dealing with the demon possessed who are wearing badges and bearing weapons and stalking in helicopters in California. They are pulling you over. They already know what you're doing. They already know who you are. They actually know what it is that they are claiming that they have, reasonable information and facts and circumstances to support what it is they know supernatural. You're dealing with the spirit. You're not dealing with the natural. You're not dealing with flesh and blood, with carnal, with people. You're dealing with spirits. Okay. And Satan, the demonic, are abusing government positions while the system of surveillance is underway. I happen to be subject to what is a criminal targeting system, and it is fully demonic. And so I'm capturing podcast today on October 31st, 2024 at this early hour. It's 3:05 a.m. because the entity is employing the demonic. If you are aware, the pattern of conduct is showing. Not only does the pattern of conduct, it's very consistent with the demon possessed do. Not only is the state of California, which is filled with demon possessed people, they are sitting on the government bodies. They're the mayors, they are the council members, they are the police departments, the sheriff's departments, the fire departments, the heads of those departments. They are working at the grocery store. In other words, they're making up the community. They're working at the elementary and the high schools around your children. They are also amongst children who are a part of this criminal system, which is demonic, including children, rearing them up like we're in some third world country, training them to engage in terrorism, because that's what it is when you are employing demonic methods of targeting and psychologically harming someone with the purpose to falsely depict that targeted person as suffering from some mental illness or murdering them, and then claiming that something unfortunate happened to them. And somehow it always goes back to that targeted individual. There's something wrong with that targeted individual. That targeted individual did something. They either killed themselves or they did something and someone else defended themselves. And that's either by the terrorist organization who is murdering people while they're engaged in group stalking, and some sort of misuse of force, abuse of force, where, a police officer, for example, I reasonably feared for my life, and so I shot the targeted individual. Remember, I'm using terms that are not a part of the conversation right now, because group stalking has yet to be exposed and become a regularly discussed part of what is probable with regard to fact patterns, with regard to circumstances, with regard to what's reported on the news every day. All right. And so where the entity is engaged in the pattern of conduct and you're able to recognize it in the specific environment, you're able to recognize it through this, the behavioral patterns of the demon possessed who are group stalking maliciously, because that's how that's referred to in court. We're not going to be talking about demons and ghouls and witches. You're going to talk about malice. All right. And the demon possessed, Satan himself, who uses people, who uses government, who wants to appear to be upright, noble, lawful, having authority, are maliciously engaging in what is satanic conduct with a smile on their face, as they are engaged in that which is upright and conformity to law, to what's proper, appropriate, to what's constitutionally protected. This is where the system of group stalking is underway. And it's occurring right in your face. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's currently again 3:08 a.m. I'm documenting the pattern of conduct while I remain at third-party facilitating venue. There's a lot built into that title. Okay, meaning I'm documenting the pattern of conduct that's underway at what is a venue that is not a private residence. So you are already aware, by virtue of my use of that phrasing, a facilitating venue is a location where the pattern of conduct is being enabled. You have what are people in that environment, a venue, in the shoes of the government. This is the government that's hiding behind the males and females, because I don't like to refer to the demon-possessed, sex offenders, and group stalkers, terrorists as men and women. I do not believe that men and women, normal people, do this. In fact, they don't. Demon-possessed people are not normal people. And they are, in fact, mentally ill. And this is an aspect of the mental health community of the so-called behavioral sciences that are not, it's not being diagnosed. And even those that are in these positions to so-called diagnose, they themselves are mentally ill, as it would be defined based on their own studies. Okay, so nonetheless, I'm going to digress from there. In a facilitating environment, at the facilitating venue, this is no longer a private residence. And you are able to recognize, because the sun is rising and setting over one house at that street. Okay, and this is what I'm documenting at Woodside Senior Apartments, the apartment complex in Ontario. And this is after I came from Victorville. And you're looking at the sun over me in the morning. And as I'm still at that hotel room, outside of that hotel room window, which is not over Woodside Senior Apartments at the same time or at any point in the day, because it's remaining at the Victorville Holiday Inn, which I documented in order to prove it. Okay. The entity is engaging in a very specific pattern of conduct, and it's demonic. It's a facilitating venue. It's not a private residence. Everybody living at that facilitating venue is maliciously engaging in a statewide pattern of conduct where they are engaging in a very specific behavioral pattern. And they do so in concert with the government that will be on the grounds of that facilitating venue or in the sky space of that facilitating venue, using planes and helicopters to engage in the pattern of conduct. This is what I'm documenting. And it's exposing the very severe mental illness of the demon-possessed entity that is indeed engaged in group stalking. Now, again, this is the sex offender. She is a bleach blonde senior citizen. She's engaged in group stalking. You have seen her on video group stalking under the fake sun that is over this parking lot, while I'm literally on video capturing the fake sun over my hotel room window at the Palmdale Holiday Inn. This is after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I captured her under that light source that's not capable to be over the Victorville Holiday Inn, contrary to what I documented in and of that. But you see even more, this sex offender with license 5WUB as in boy 715, she's going to federal prison, but more so the mental illness that she suffers from as a demon-possessed person in need of deliverance that only the Lord Jesus Christ can provide. But the Lord Jesus Christ is not delivering her from federal prison, because that's where this sex offender is going. Okay, but her condition is something that you need to be made aware of, because it's going to inform for your own protection, for your own information, because this is mental illness. This demon possession, this condition is what millions of people in this country suffer from. So I just want to be clear. This condition, what Satan is doing, what's occurring in the land, demon possession, which I'm just with regard to converting, putting it in terms that everybody can recognize. Oh, mental illness, that's like a key phrase. Technically, demon possession is categorized in the secular. It's referred to as a type of mental illness because of the psychopathic behavioral patterns, because of the highly psychotic decision making and the mindset, the deranged mindset behind the one that's engaged in group stalking. The level of malice is psychotic. Okay. And this is inspired because they have demons. All right, they're demon possessed. But nonetheless, this is what is referred to in the secular as mental illness. And that's perfectly fine because that's also completely appropriate to refer to it in that manner in the federal tribunals in legislation. All right. But the entity is engaging in pattern of conduct and doing so at Woodside Senior Apartments, which is a facilitating venue because the sun is never going to, the natural environment does not consist of the sun rising and setting at one address. However, that's exactly what's on as a matter of video documentation, video and images. I just want to be clear. Let me underscore. I have so much pivotal, highly probative evidence that's not on video. I capture a lot of pictures. I will capture and remind you, what did I document on July 15, 2024, when I'm living and working at Alvarado Gardens, not going anywhere all day long. I wake up inside of my apartment. I go downstairs to my leasing office. I stay there all day long. Dominic Choi, the former demon over the LAPD, group stalking me all day long with the demons of the LAPD using helicopters where that fake sun remained over my leasing office all day long. I'll remind you, I'll take a picture. That's where the fake sun was at the same time when I am a couple months later at the Woodside Senior Apartments, and the fake sun is remaining over apartment door number 51. Okay, that's capturing the specific environment. A lot of the highly probative evidence is captured in images like that, pictures, and I even give comparison. What is over the leasing office, what is over my front door at Alvarado Gardens, is not over apartment 51 in Ontario, California. That's another way where you are juxtaposing the crime scene. You are recognizing the malice with which a demon-possessed entity is group stalking, and they do so in highly predictable manners. The psychopathic mind state is such that the entity will engage in the pattern of conduct. A psychopath will engage in repeating that pattern of conduct and then increasing in hostility, increasing in aggression, increasing in violence, as opposed to a normal, sane person, perhaps recognizing, okay, maybe I've misstepped. Maybe I should stop here. That's not what a psychopath does. The entity increases in that violence and does so to its own demise because they're not just engaging. They're not just aware that I'm not just chit chatting about it. I'm prosecuting these demons. I'm going to prosecute them. So you are entirely psychotic to your own demise based on your reaction. You react with hostility. You react with aggression. You react with more violence, i.e. the public safety concern. Okay. But you also are doing so to your own demise. You're going to sit in federal prison for that. I'm not just documenting for funsies. Yes, I'm going to embarrass you. Yes, I'm going to make sure the world knows exactly, not only by your personal identity, but for their own purposes, because you're not just marrying that image. Demon possession is not unique to this senior citizen that's group stalking inside of apartment 55 at Woodside Senior Apartments. All right. And all the rest of them in apartments 33 through 64 who are going to federal prison. Demon possession. Understand Satan is a spirit. Satan is using vessels. You have a population who are sharing the demonic spirit of Satan. And that's how you have, by the way, an identical behavioral pattern amongst a bunch of people that do not necessarily know each other. For example, when you're going to the city mall, all these people they didn't get up and have a meeting talking about wherever I walk, and they're going to engage in the same exact method of trying to make sure that they're in the path. They're engaged in some method of stalking with light activity, some method of stalking with audible activity, the ongoing audible activity, which is demonic, speaking to intent, amplification. It's not naturally occurring. That is, by the way, legally documented, legally relevant with regard to criminal intent. The demons intentionally maintain presence in that environment. The demons intentionally maintain the elements of monitoring in that environment. They are demons who are in sync serving Satan, while the criminal conduct where they're targeting someone through demonic methods is going to be prosecuted. And they're doing it on behalf of the government, who arrives in helicopters as a matter of a pattern of conduct. Okay, so the entity is doing so maliciously at a facilitating venue, not a private residence, where Woodside Senior Apartments is shown to have the fake sun remaining from 7:18 in the morning till approximately 6:27 p.m. That's not the natural environment. This is where the entity is group stalking helicopters day and night. That is also indicating the specific environment, and no one is sheltered from a criminal prosecution. The entire property is going to be prosecuted. The company that's representing Woodside Senior Apartments, the property management company, they're also profiting while they're engaged in the criminal surveillance system, which is conspiring to murder and kidnap me. That's why a government is group stalking you. These demons think that they're going to sacrifice you to Satan, and then do it maliciously under what's supposed to be the appearance of an everyday, just a normal, everyday unfortunate occurrence to another American citizen. We'll have to investigate. We'll conduct the burial. We'll give our eulogy and the statements regarding our love and condolences to that target individual, and then life goes on. They're sacrificing people in this country to Satan. It's entirely demonic, and it's maliciously occurring as free American society, where crime, just happens to be a part of what happens. And that's why we have, the wonderful law enforcement agency. Unfortunately, in California, they're demon-possessed terrorist leaders and organizations, and they're fully engaged in that unlawful taking of lives, which is also underway, where a target individual subject to psychological torture in the ways in which I'm showing you group stalking inflicts, you are going to be prosecuted for the unlawful loss of life. That's also why it's so serious. While a demon is living at a facilitating venue, like the senior citizen with the bleach blonde hair, where you can see through her stature and appearance, she's not causing the ceilings and the walls to crack while she's walking around. I'm not saying that she's fit. I'm not saying that she's thin, but I am saying that her every move is not going to be punctuated with the sound of crackling ceilings and creating any earthquakes. That's called amplification. That's a demon that's stalking in the path. She also doesn't pursue it to whatever it is that I do physically and what I do online. Though that's a demon that's monitoring you. That demon is using her vessel, that person, but that person is not innocent. Meaning you can't claim in federal court, and it's legally irrelevant. The fact that you want to claim, I'm not demon possessed, or I don't know what a demon is making me do. That's not what you're being prosecuted for. You're maliciously engaged in the state pattern of conduct. The people of the state are not ignorant while they drive by you, and engineer light is moving all across, terrorizing you by directed light, also molesting you with directed light while they're engaged in surveillance, sitting in their car, group stalking your every move, present with regard to lying in wait conduct, in case you walk outside, in case you walk through the parking lot, in case you go and decide to take the trip, whatever it is. These demons are always engaging in what is corporate maintenance of presence in the past, so that they can maintain the elements of monitoring: audible activity, light activity, and someone always to be present in the path, even when the demons are the nearby airport or the terrorist organization, the city police. Okay, that's the aerial surveillance aspect. That's what the demons are doing. And this is, by the way, revealing what is the practice of witchcraft. The state of California is engaged in practicing of witchcraft, which is essentially what group stalking is. All right, they're sacrificing you and then robbing you of your reputation, literally spell work with your character. Just casting spells or speaking word curses about who you are and your character and what it is that you've done or what it is that you're capable of doing. Just demons, witches, warlocks, just lying. Okay. And the fact that you are being gang stalked is the evidence of that. And by the way, nobody that's being gang stalked is actually the criminal. A criminal. The entity has and does engage in what is abusing its position as the government that's corrupt, and creating the documents, creating the criminal record, creating the mental health diagnosis in order to establish their witchcraft practices of defaming you, by the way. It's exposing public corruption. That's also the evidence that at every level of government, group stalking is underway. Remember, group stalking is not just your crossing path. It's not just your light activity. It's not just your audible activity creation. Group stalking is underway at the courts, where they are acting in conformity to the pattern of conduct with the intent to obstruct justice. That is not exposing that demon-possessed police department who never had any probable cause or reasonable suspicion to detain you, to arrest you, to take you anywhere, which is a kidnapping. They're group stalking you. The entity is being facilitated with regard to that pattern of conduct. It's being facilitated by group stalking by the courts, who, by the way, are demons sitting on the bench. They're demons calling themselves a public defender's office and demons calling themselves a district attorney's office. When I say it is far, wide, reaching, and pervasive, that's exactly what I mean. And by the way, I have literally documented it. Okay. When the entity is seeking to falsely depict a legally trained lawyer, I know the laws, I know my rights, and the entity sought to do it to me, who is fully capable, as you can see, of representing myself, speaking on my own behalf. But the entity, aware of that, just engaged in muzzling me by putting you in the uniform and silencing you, so that way you appear to be mentally ill. No one is going to listen to you. And even as clearly as you are able to make sense, they will just disregard you and reference the demons who are calling themselves mental health professionals in order to maintain that paper trail, because the objective is to kidnap and defame you. All right. This is the pattern of conduct, to put it very succinctly. But nonetheless, I want to get to what the entity is doing here. And then I'm going to publish the videos that I captured at the Ontario International Airport. It is exposing the demons, the closeted sex offenders, the group stalkers in California who are in positions of leadership over the corrupt police department. Ontario is going to be disbanded. All right. They've engaged in a pattern of kidnapping. That's intolerable criminal facilitation. Not only as the government do you have no constitutional protections or authority to engage in criminal surveillance of an American citizen, the demons of the Ontario Police Department have engaged in, you have hundreds of video documentation on the record showing that they are sex offenders that are stalking me day and night in helicopters, and they will be producing their names because they're going to federal prison, but the entire department is going to be disbanded. Not only are they engaged in this psychotic pattern of conduct with the people of the state, they have engaged in a pattern of kidnapping because they are fully engaged in federal stalking, meaning they know that I'm also documenting it, and the entity sought to, in concert with sex offenders like the demon inside of apartment 55 who's going to federal prison, to falsely depict me as being a criminal. They never had any right to arrest. When you're engaged in group stalking, and by the way, I'm not in any violation of law that you have no authority under regardless, when I am documenting your criminal conduct and you're just making up a charge, because that's literally what they did. They physically assault, I'm subject to an assault and battery by a demon that's wearing a badge. This is the same department that's stalking me day and night in helicopter, following me around, engaged in criminal summoning. I'm documenting it standing on public property, that is the sidewalk, and I am physically accosted by a demon. That's a terrorizing occurrence. A demon that's bearing weapons, that's a terrorizing occurrence. A demon that's bearing weapons, bearing a badge as though they have authority under the law, which is the purpose of a terrorist leader terrorist organizations masquerading as law enforcement. That's the purpose of them in particular, group stalking. That's the purpose, because Satan specifically wants to appear, masquerade as having lawful authority to do what they are doing, and they don't. They actually don't. And you're never going to be in a position, you're not supposed to at least, you're never supposed to be in a position where you will ever be able to testify regarding the demons who are stalking you with strangers in California and with corrupt police who are pursuing you, chasing you like animals in helicopters. Barbaric, sex offending demons calling themselves a police department. Ontario Police is going to be disbanded. They've engaged in a pattern of kidnapping in concert with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. And they're in hundreds of videos group stalking me in helicopter. Okay. They're group stalking this morning again at 2:00 in the morning with the Ontario International Airport. And they do so. Remember, everything that I document, everything that's occurring is based on what I do. I'm literally surrounded by an obsessed entity. This obsession is born of that demon possession. And this is recognized. This is to be recognized. And I'm not going to mince words. It is a form. It is what any other secular person would address as mental illness. That's exactly what it is. They're mentally ill. They're mentally ill not only based on their engagement in this psychotic pattern of conduct, but they're mentally ill because of their reaction to being exposed. The demon possessed are no longer secretly able to target anyone. All right. And so as a response, they increase in hostility and aggression and violence. Yes, you're very mentally ill on both counts, which you will also be compensated. You will recover. You will be made whole based on the fact that a bunch of mentally ill sex offenders, demon possessed, that is malicious stalkers, are pursuing you relentlessly, trying to murder and kidnap you as an entity, which is why the state is group stalking you in the first place. You will be made whole for that. You will recover. All right. And the entity that is profiting off of your demise, they will be subject to what is a punitive method of awarding damages to you as an American citizen. And that's what AVANATH AVANATH Capital Management LLC represents. While the state is group stalking over Woodside Senior Apartment Sky Space, while the people of the state are living at the facilitating venue of Woodside Senior Apartments, while the people of the state are coming onto the grounds of the Woodside Senior Apartments complex to maintain the criminal elements of monitoring, not to engage in anything lawful or constitutional, private or protected. None of the above. Where the fake sun is present, you're looking at the state group stalking. The state is acting through the people of the state, acting via the people of the state. You're understanding what is both Satan that is using people, and you're also understanding the state that is using the people. They're group stalking, and it's the entity, the demonic entity, and it's the public entity. Understand my use of words there. It's very pivotal while you're understanding demonic activity that's underway by a corrupt government who is criminally targeting an American citizen, employing the demonic to do so, which is designed to be toward the demise of that targeted individual. All right. But again, common sense and federal law shall be enforced because it's a matter of fact that the targeted conduct that the entity engages in bears no reflection whatsoever, as a matter of fact, on the target individual. But this system is designed, and it's absolutely illogical. It's relying on the corruption of the state of California. That's the only reason why the only way that you get that result. It is outright corruption. Because the entity claiming a target individual claiming that you are, which by the way, you are fully capable, as the Ontario Police and the Los Angeles Police Department have shown, you are fully capable of being prosecuted, having a case against the state for harassment, for stalking using helicopters. The demons of LAPD and the demons of the Ontario Police have engaged in such heavily documented stalking. And remember, it's even beyond just the stalking, following me from place to place to place in helicopters. That's a specific department following me from place to place to place. That is very specific because not everybody else in the state, not everybody else in the city is going to the same place that I'm going everywhere that I'm going. You do not have the shared experience. And not only that, based on the exclusivity of the so-called natural environment, I'm showing you the specific environment where the entity is following me from place to place to place in helicopters. These demons are group stalking in helicopters. They're going to be disbanded in Ontario. But nonetheless, the entity that is seeking to falsely depict a targeted individual as suffering from mental illness because you allege that which the entity is actually capable of doing, it shall no longer be a basis of defaming or invoking the mental state of a targeted individual, of a potential plaintiff. That shall be no longer, because of what California is exposed as engaging in. No state shall under any circumstances include or make relevant or include in the controversy of any plaintiff the mental health, the mind state, as a matter of criminal distraction, criminal obstruction of justice. All right. Well, they want to defame that target individual for the psychotic criminal conduct that state is fully capable of engaging in, as California is the proof of, the evidence of, because that's what the states are doing. And you have people that are sitting in mental wards, mental institutions now, and there's nothing wrong with them. The government has successfully defamed them, targeted them, while they're a bunch of demons who know who they are in the spirit, because this is Satan targeting people. Satan knows who you are spiritually, especially if you're a child of God. Okay, so the entity is engaging in that, but don't get me wrong. This is not for the benefit of only those who are born again Christians filled with the Holy Spirit, who are followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. And this is for the benefit of American citizens. Okay, because the targeted individual does not necessarily have to be somebody that's suffering from being persecuted as a believer, because it is relevant, because this is demonic. This is revealing any American citizen can be subject to this criminal system, which you have a right under the Constitution to enforce your rights. And that's because this lawlessness, this criminal conduct, the entity can engage, for example, you can entertain a hypothetical right now, engaging in some sort of act of revenge by an entity. Say that someone's a part of this so-called secret society and they don't want to be a part of it anymore. And then the entity starts to target that former Coven member, and they're targeting that person in order to set them up to appear as though they killed themselves, or to appear as though that there's some sort of criminal. They will be subject to the same group stalking system, even though they are not necessarily being subject to, for example, persecution. They may not be Holy Spirit filled. They may not know the Lord Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. So I just want to be clear. I am speaking to the reality that this is the work of Satan, and Satan is specifically targeting. I am a child of God. I love the Lord Jesus Christ. I confess him as my Lord and Savior. And I have been targeted by the state of California since I was a child. Becoming aware of it as an adult, as a professional, and then experiencing all of the facets of that harassment, of that targeting system, and then it maturing to the point to where the entity is all out stalking in planes and helicopters everywhere I go, especially as I document the people of the state that the state cannot protect. In fact, as they arrive in planes and helicopters, it's pointing directly back at the sex-offending demon-possessed group stalker who I may be focused on in the documentation. That person, whoever they are, they're all going to federal prison. All right. Because that's the entity's pattern of conduct. The entity thinks, the police will show up, engage in group stalking, and then like you're a mouse and you're just going to, look over there. And now you're just going to forget about, and that's not how that works. And by the way, that's not how any federal investigator or federal prosecution is going to be executed. You're dealing with mental illness and literally a level of just an inept mindset. You're dealing with a lot of bullies that are not necessarily intelligent. You're dealing with the spirit of Satan that relies just on gang conduct. If you do not know that demons, they are relying on each other. They're timid. They're apprehensive. They're actually very fearful, especially with confronting the Lord Jesus Christ, which is the spirit that fills me. The Holy Spirit, they're fearful of that. But nonetheless, they, in the face of that fear, a psychopath, knowing that you're going to federal prison because you have heard me tell you where you're going. That's exactly where you're going. And you persist to your own demise. A psychopath does that. Okay, that's a psychopath that can go into their dresser, grab their guns that they've been holding for a while, and just start shooting on the freeway, start shooting in the mall, go to the nearest preschool and just start shooting people. And I'm not being hyperbolic. That's the psychopathic mind state of the mentally ill who are group stalking, of the demon possessed, of the mentally ill who are not being diagnosed, who are maliciously hiding amongst the professional community. They call themselves doctors and nurses and psychiatrists. They are demon-possessed group stalkers in California, maliciously and intentionally and deliberately group stalking by virtue of criminal defamation. All right. So the entity is doing so very maliciously in California. And so I want to, with that, I'm going to include the videos of group stalking by the Ontario International Airport. And again, the timing that they arrive, they arrive, and by arrive, I put that in air quotes because the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police Department, they're engaged in 24-hour surveillance. That is, again, the government, the companies that are going to be treated as persons under federal law. Well, these corrupt persons in California that are making so much money, names that you are perhaps you consumers of, you support a lot of these companies that are going to be exposed, they're going to be prosecuted. They're sex offenders. They're terrorists. They are hostile to your constitutional protections. They're hostile to your enforcing it. And that's a matter of evidence based on my documentation, because that's actually how they feel about you enforcing your rights. That's actually how they feel about you, about your human rights to not be subject to their targeting system, while they have the audacity to want to make a buck off of you. All right. And they're group stalking you. They're keeping you under surveillance. They're violating your privacy. They're sexually violating and offending you. All right. The entity is doing so amongst corrupt actors such as the City of Ontario, the Ontario International Airport, located at 2500 Airport Road, Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, even the directions where they're taking off from those terminals. The entity is engaged in clear deviation from the airport. And then if you're taking off from the airport, you are necessarily remaining at a low elevation to be over Woodside Senior Apartments miles away. And then at Woodside, then you're seeing on the video, then at Woodside Senior Apartments, they're increasing in elevation. It's absolutely unintelligent. And the mental illness is exposed, not only because demons are flying these commercial planes stalking, those same demons are capable of engaging what we all witnessed on 9/11. Commercial planes going into skyscrapers. You've seen that before. You've seen that before. Okay, so you have mentally ill demons who are flying, stalking an American citizen. That's terrorism in the U.S. by so-called Americans against Americans in America. Okay, terrorism that's being inflicted by the American government on American citizens. And you have seen terrorism using commercial planes, attacking American citizens, originating from, supposedly those from across the seas, foreign terrorists. All right, well, this domestic terrorism is happening on American soil, and they are fully capable of the same egregious conduct that you are aware of, because everyone can recall 9/11. You need to understand what I'm documenting, the severity of what is group stalking using commercial planes. It's absolutely psychotic. And the entity engaged in more of this pacing, because that's what you're doing in engineered light. You will see it, but I'm going to include the video on the podcast, but you will see the video. My shadow is surrounding my person. It's upright. It's multiple shadows. It's flat on the ground. It's upright on the wall. It's surrounding on the wall, on the doors. That's not the product of the light fixtures on the buildings outside of the apartment building, on the apartment complex. It's not the product of street lamps. It's engineered light. And by the way, you see the exact same impossible light, my upright shadow, when I'm looking at a wall, as opposed to what's supposed to be under the sun. My shadow's on one shadow on the ground. You see the exact same light activity at this facilitating venue under the fake sun during the day. This is where Woodside Senior Apartments, a facilitating venue, a third-party facilitating venue, is group stalking with the Ontario International Airport, who are engaged in federal stalking in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. That is, with knowledge of the fact that I am documenting a violent sex offender who is a chief means of amplified audible activity. This is a psychopath. This is a mentally ill senior citizen who will not only be subject to federal prison, she will be banned from receiving any low-income housing benefits from the state or from the federal government, because no housing programs shall assist any domestic terrorist, any sex offender. Because that's exactly what she is. That's what the people of the state are. That's what California is. There are a lot of laws to be adjusted in order to affect public policy where the state is engaged in this demonic system. You cannot put everyone in federal prison, but you can affect everyone with regard to the ways in which public policies, the laws are created based on what is now nationwide, but known of an established fact that the state of California is a group stalker. They're engaged in terrorizing American citizens, and they do it through the everyday constituent in the state who should not benefit from state and federal housing benefits. You can't pay your rent. That's your problem. You sex offending terrorists. That's your problem. It's to the benefit of that entire neighborhood, that state, that you can't afford to pay your rent. You should go live next to the dumpsters where you belong so you can't terrorize anybody else. Okay? You're not going to be assisted with your rent. All right. You're also not going to sit as a president over a corrupt airport that's engaging in the ongoing conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone by group stalking them in commercial planes. It's very specific with regard to who is being targeted in the specific environment in conformity to years of the documented pattern of conduct using planes and helicopters. Remember, it's not just the fact that the fake sun is remaining over Tracy Banks' door inside of apartment 51. It's remaining over me inside of this apartment all day long. I am showing evidence with regard to what is under no circumstances capable of being the natural environment. However, that's exactly the basis upon which you're going to focus in order to prosecute the state, because this is not possibly the natural environment while I'm showing you the fake sun staying over the top of my head all day long in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens all day. It's irreconcilable, but it's showing a specific pattern of conduct. It's an intent to engage in that pattern of conduct as well. Because it's beyond any coincidence where you are witnessing and looking at and failing to in any way reconcile that specific environment, as I've termed it, because it's not the natural environment. All right. So you will not remain as a group stalker over a position of leadership, not only sitting on the city council in Ontario. I'm referencing the sex offender Alan D. Wapner, this demon-possessed terrorist that is fully aware of the demonic methods of terrorism and psychological torture employed, while there are no scheduled departures or arrivals at the Ontario International Airport at 2 o'clock in the morning, where they have plane after plane after plane hovering down, clearly deviating from the Ontario International Airport, Terminal 2 or Terminal 4, to be anywhere over Woodside Senior Apartments, a multifamily zone, a senior citizen community, disrupting quiet enjoyment, not only based on what is the hovering low elevation of the planes, but the amplified level of volume, the time and the frequency of these planes, clearly deviating from the Ontario International Airport, anywhere near. And if you're taking off from the Ontario International Airport, you're not hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments at this distance. Because if you're taking off from the Ontario International Airport, by the time you are flying over Woodside Senior Apartments, you're at an elevation where you're not disrupting quiet enjoyment of senior citizens who did not move into a 55 plus community, because planes are going to be hovering over their apartment buildings at 2 o'clock in the morning. And this is not me enforcing the quiet enjoyment rights of the leaseholders at Woodside Senior Apartments. This is me prosecuting the demon-possessed group stalkers living at the facilitating venue, Woodside Senior Apartments, who are group stalking with the Ontario International Airport. Demons acting in sync together, incriminating each other. All right, the entity is doing so with real-time knowledge, and so I just want to document here. I did capture screenshots. You'll see on the Google Drive. I just took a screenshot of the arrivals and departures of planes of the airlines at Ontario International Airport, where planes are scheduled to arrive and depart from the airport. Not only is there no scheduled departures until 5 o'clock in the morning, but there is, again, even if there were, what the entity is doing, which I captured on video, you'll see them as I just go up the staircase a little bit. They're right over the roof of the Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity is engaging in very psychotic conduct. What that requires is they are flying from the airport, which again, the airports are not ignorant about what's going on with their planes, where they're going, what they're doing. And that's the same with these corrupt police departments. They're not ignorant about what's going on with their helicopters, what they're doing, where they're going, the expenditure included in keeping them gassed up in order to group stalk me 24 hours a day. All right, which is a pattern of conduct as I go from city to city, including state to state, by the way. They're all aware of that. It's not a secret. But nonetheless, you're looking at the commercial plane that's not coming from Ontario International Airport when you're hovering over the roof of the Woodside Senior Apartment Complex. And you're also doing it at 2:00 in the morning. And you're also doing it when there's no published arrivals or departures from the Ontario International Airport. It is under all circumstances clearly group stalking on a common sense analysis basis. It's group stalking as a matter of what is the established P.O.C. This is the specific environment. You'll see my shadows surrounding myself. The level of volume, not only is it uncharacteristic about what should be happening at this multifamily zone, multifamily residence zone, and that which the Ontario International Airport is bound by with regard to what it's doing regarding planes and the elevations that they fly at and the conscious noise levels that they're supposed to be mindful of. This is all built into when airports are included in the city. This is common sense. Why are you able to, I have to go through all this and just point these points out, and address these points. Why? Because this common sense that I just am mindful of, cognizant of, just randomly, okay? And this is not even, the federal government would delve into the depths and details about everything they're doing, when they do it, how they do it, and who's doing it. Okay, and this is just a common sense, very surface level analysis. This is not rocket science. It's as clear as a fake sun remaining over the apartment building all day long. Very clear. The entity is doing so with regard to, you're clearly coming, this is psychotic. You're flying from the airport, the Ontario International Airport. You're hunkered down, and even in your mind's eye, you're looking at witnessing a stalker. You're stalking in a plane. You're coming from the airport and you're hunkered down very low in elevation over the apartment complex. And then you are rising in elevation over the complex when everyone is aware of where the Ontario International Airport is. And I just pointed out, just as, oh, by the way, there's no scheduled arrivals or departures from the Ontario International Airport. So they're just doing donuts in the sky space repeatedly over a multifamily senior citizen complex. I'm walking outside and capturing that because it's that loud inside of the apartment. But you know what that is, under the fake sun and an engineered light that I'm capturing inside of this apartment all day long. Remember my shadow appearing on the ceiling. Remember the illumination of light inside of this apartment while the patio is covered up and the light is appearing underneath a covered patio it's touching the floor. This is all manner of what is hellish light activity. It's absolutely satanic. While this same sex offender is running in circles all day long. She's absolutely out of her mind. She's going to be subject to mental examinations, as are the entity that's going to be faced with a federal prosecution. Mental examinations are built into the ways in which a demon-possessed, a mentally ill entity that needs to be cleansed, that needs to be rehabilitated, is going to be treated upon federal prosecution, upon conviction, and also upon what is federal imprisonment. All right, the entity, and that's just a matter of what is benefiting the public. Because you have this need, this concern, which is a public safety concern. This is something that has to be addressed. It's necessarily crucial. You have people with severe mental illness. Some of them don't even know what causes them to get up and start running around in circles. Oh, but they intend to. Under the law, you're a criminal and you're intentionally engaging in it. And you are aware of the fact that another person doesn't like it. You're aware of the fact and you intend to try to torment someone to the point to where they might begin and engage in suicidal ideation. As the mentally ill psychopath you are, you're gratified by the thought of it. That's a crime. And it's going to be appreciated as a crime under federal law by the government who's acting through these mentally ill people of the state in California. It's going to be appreciated in federal law. It's how an entity is engaging and what are these experiments on the amongst American citizens who have a right to not be subject to it. All right. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct and is doing so using planes. You are necessarily creeping in a plane over a senior citizen complex at 2 a.m. And why? Because I'm going in on this sex offender in apartment 55. So as I began literally honing in on her psychotic, criminal, and sexually violent pattern of conduct, because not only is she group stalking and monitoring my internet activity and what I'm doing online, this sex offender is doing the same thing when I'm physically indisposed, when my genitalia is exposed, when I'm engaged in all manner of private and personal conduct inside of this apartment. While you're engaged in federal stalking, you are a prosecuted sex offender. You're not taking a pause. You're obsessed with me at all times of the day and night. You're a sex offender. You have a whole airport that is centering its operations around my genitalia. Alan D. WAPNER is fully aware of that. He's fully engaged in it. And as a matter of public policy, such a sex offender over in that type of position is not fit or qualified to remain. The exposure of group stalking is requiring, it's necessitating, it is mandating an overhaul of the corruption that's being exposed in that state. It's mandating it. The entity is engaged in that, which is exposing very psychotic. This is a demon-possessed person. You're aware of their condition and you're aware of their clear intent to engage in targeting. And it's very specific because I have a body of evidence of the same exact P.O.C. They're group stalking me. They're group stalking me while I'm documenting the people of the state. And as they do so, it's prosecuting the state. It's prosecuting the same exact third party. I am not a mouse. I do not have mice brains, where I'm going to, look over there because you arrived in a helicopter. Contrary to that, the entity, everybody group stalking with those demons using hell, they're all going to federal prison. You've heard me say it plenty of times, and that's exactly what's going to happen. The entities, the mentally ill, their logic, they resolve in their mind to engage in more bullying, more psychological torture, more sexual violence, more terrorism as a response to your enforcing your rights. That is going to be met very intensely under federal law with a very severe prosecution, very severe penalties with regard to civil damages and with regard to sentencing. And why? Because another aspect of the pattern of conduct, to prosecute it, it is a purpose, it is an obligation. It's a responsibility to openly address it, to shame them, to punish them, to use them as an example to deter others. I'm going to be upfront with that at the outset. It's very much my goal to make sure you and everybody that thinks they want to do what you did, you learn beforehand. There is no surprise. There's no surprises regarding what you will suffer if you think you're going to get away with this, if you think that you're going to inflict this against another American citizen and get away with it, or what the entity has already engaged in. And there are people in the state of California, in this country, who have yet to be relieved from what they're suffering right now based on what the P.O.C. is exposing, based on what the Lord Jesus is exposing. Okay? He's exposing much about what mental illness this needs to be studied. It needs to be addressed. It's a public safety concern. It's a public health concern in the state of California. But yes, the greater implications it's going in this country. Yeah. You are aware of the specific environment around you. There is no natural environment that includes the sun rising and setting at this apartment complex. Accordingly, what is it above your head? You are able to deduce a lot based on what's being exposed about this demonic system of federal group stalking and monitoring. Okay. And I'm going to rest there. What the entity is doing is clearly deviating from, it's so psychotic, but let me just go ahead and articulate it in a clear sentence so that you can understand, because you have to communicate in order to get your point across, but it's so psychotic. You have a demon-possessed person and you're aware of that because of the specific environment, because of the pattern of conduct that's already exposed. And so I'm capturing video of the same exact P.O.C. You are a demon-possessed group stalker, and you're doing so in your mind, understand the mental illness is already exposed. Because you're stalking and you're intending to engage in that pattern of conduct against somebody who's documenting it with the intent to terrorize and harass that person. And you are doing it in a commercial airline plane. That is absolutely psychotic, very disturbing. That those people, they go home, they're connected to children, they're connected to other people. They are the ticking time bombs. They are capable of engaging in acts of violence that we are all aware of, such as flying planes into skyscrapers to kill a lot of people, to hurt a lot of people, for whatever cause that they want to, esteem at the time. They don't need one, though. That's the point. Group stalking doesn't have a legitimate basis. There is no reason, and before God, there is no excuse to engage in this criminal conduct, this satanic behavior, this evil, wicked conduct. There is no excuse before God, and there is no excuse under federal law. So I just want to be clear. A psychopath, a demon-possessed person, to be very specific, is hovering down, clearly deviating from taking off any sort of appearance where you're taking off from the Ontario International Airport, Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, to be at a low elevation where you are directly above the roof of the Woodside Senior Apartments. And then as though you are at Woodside Senior Apartments over the venue itself, increasing in elevation. You've clearly flew way over here. A creeper, stalking, a demon. That's who does that. The mentally ill, demon possessed. That's who does that. Creeping in planes, engaging in what is highly unintelligent. So I break it down for you so all the world can witness the idiocy. These are the same idiots that are stalking under a fake sun. Okay, so I just want to, it's very disturbing, but this is probative because when I say all of the third-party group stalkers, I want to be clear. The entire property, there's 144 units. They all deserve to go to federal prison. Do not be mistaken. The demon-possessed third party that's living in unit number 1 is group stalking, is fully engaged in the elements monitoring in the same way that the sex offender in apartment number 55 is. Just for purposes of just being precise, and like I said, it's not limited. The federal government, I'm blowing the whistle. I'm handing this over with all of the evidence and a built-in resolution with regard to prosecuting the state and exposing criminal conduct that the world, let alone the federal government in the U.S., needs to be aware of. Okay. But it's not to state that the entire property, understand that it's even beyond that. The demon they're living in relevant position all around. It's a statewide P.O.C, but again, it's not practical. All right. And it's also not, it is, I am convinced, and I do believe it's not even within the Lord's plan. This is wicked. This is evil. God is judging it. Okay. All right. So even serving time in federal prison, you're still going to answer. You're going to stand before the Lord God Almighty. You're going to stand before him. All right. The answer is not to put everybody in federal prison, but yes, they deserve it. You understand that they are all acting to murder and kidnap someone. All of them. The entire city of Ontario. Understand that. That's what group stalking is. There's no exception. Any place I go to in the city of Ontario, you will see the specific environment over me. And if I stand there long enough, if I get too detailed, if I say too many incendiary comments about these sex offenders, they don't like to be called out for what they are, the demons will arrive in helicopter. They will hover right over by commercial plane. Everybody, the city of Ontario is group stalking. This is a demonic city. This is a demonic state. It is not practical, however. It is not the Lord's will. I have not been given the word to put everybody in federal prison because that's not the goal. That's not practical, and that's also not the goal here. The judge is coming. He's coming back. He's coming back in judgment. He is coming back, and nobody is missing anything. The demon that's living in apartment number 1, they're not getting away with anything because I didn't focus on their unit number, and I'm focusing on the demons in apartments 33 through 64. Why? Because they are living in relevant position immediately in front and in the building that I'm inside of. That systematic facilitation by virtue of maintaining presence in the immediate buildings. That's how I am judging that. Okay. The entire Woodside Senior Apartment Complex is engaged in intolerable facilitation. The entire apartment complex is worthy of federal prison. The entire property. But like I said, with regard to that, that's the breaking down of the rationale behind that, rather. All right. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and the creation of policies such as these sex offenders, these terrorists, they can't pay their rent. They need help paying their rent. The government's not going to help you. The government shall no longer assist sex offenders currently the government already doesn't support sex offenders in order to pay their rent. At least they won't anymore. There might be exceptions to that. I am not a convicted sex offender. I don't know anything about that. I'm not an expertise in that particular field. However, being prosecuted, being convicted for federal group stalking and monitoring, no state or federal housing benefits shall be provided to such convicts. You will be published, maintained by the DOJ because of the threat to national security that you are. And you will be subject to a credit check, to a background check, to a criminal check, and with regard to applying for employment. You can't just go work anywhere, just like any other sex offender. And you will not be able to get such housing. But you can't even pay your rent, and you are engaging in this conduct, acting toward the psychological torture and torment and harassment and group stalking of another, and yet you need the state, the federal government to help pay your rent. It is as irreconcilable to me as my shadow being upright under the fake sun. It makes no sense, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So with a body of laws that are acting to disincentivize state terrorism amongst the population who perhaps before now, the government that's maliciously group stalking, calling it one program, and actually they're compensating the demon-possessed constituents of the state to engage in this system, call it a tax break. You call it whatever they want, how they're being compensated for it. You're going to balance out the scales, the creation of laws to disincentivize it, the creation of policies to disincentivize it. You want to lose your job? You want to lose your citizenship? You want to lose your ability to even be around children, to even keep custody of your children? You want to lose your ability to get any sort of housing benefits? You want to sacrifice being on the street? That's not funny. That's a very real circumstance for terrorist group stalking in America, because that's exactly where it's going to happen, where we're headed. Terrorists are not going to be supported by state and federal housing programs. And that's how you are addressing that. It's not practical that everybody go to federal prison, but there are ways to address this. And I want to be clear. In my opinion, it's more powerful. It's more effective than putting everybody in federal prison. Yeah, I think so. It's more effective because you're getting down. That's affecting everyone. Because let me be clear. I don't have to capture the sex offenders living at 717 North Vine Avenue with the Ontario Police group stalking, even though I have. I have. They're right in relevant position in alignment while Ontario PD is flying right over me. You have to understand the way that you're able. It's very precise with regard to this system of prosecuting everybody in relevant position. However, they're simultaneously being documented. The group stalkers working at 7-Eleven, they're simultaneously being documented. All the patrons, their business records, nobody is being missed. All right. And so you're able to enforce laws, state laws and federal laws and policies to disincentivize this very system that the corrupt government has been able to maintain. The government needs the people. You're breaking up this whole demonic corrupt system. You're going to break it all apart. Because the government can't help you in federal court. The government can't help itself. You got government actors who are going to federal prison. They will never have anything to do with the position that they're currently babysitting for somebody else that doesn't serve Satan. They're going to make very hard decisions. You want to lose everything? Because that's the design of prosecuting you for domestic terrorism. It's justice that you lose everything. Because the entity, remember, is trying to murder and kidnap someone maliciously and then wants to as you would refer to it, gaslight that innocent person. You want to murder them. You want to kidnap and defame them and then blame them by gaslighting, calling that target individual a criminal or calling them mentally ill, blaming their demise on them one way or another. Conditioning the mindset, your attitudes through what the people of the state are saying about such subjects on social media, about relevant topics on social media. Understand how this is propaganda, how Satan is using these mediums to engage in facilitating it, to create a culture where this can exist, where this can fester, where this can thrive. The prosecution, the exposure of federal group stalking and monitoring is designed in every way to disincentivize not only wicked conduct, disgusting sin, but criminal activity. If you don't want to discuss sin, that's fine. We don't have to. We don't have to pontificate. I'm fully capable as a professional. We can discuss the laws. We can discuss policies. I love it. Okay. That's why I'm so passionate about this. We don't have to discuss that. It applies though, but that's fine. We can talk about law, the application of law, the violation of law, the penalties for violating laws. We can keep it at that because that's the focus anyway. When you get to the sin, when you get to the wicked, when you get to the wicked conduct and a judgment, guess what? It's leading to what is criminal conduct. It's the fruit of that, this criminal activity for which there are penalties. The entity is subject to, yes, a prosecution. Not everybody's going to be subject to federal prison. Everybody you're going to federal prison. Those which you've engaged in violating the rules of which they've been laid out, you're going to federal prison. You know exactly who you are because you've been monitoring the evidence for years. So you already know what's going to happen to you. The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct, but not everyone. You can't put the whole state of California in federal prison, nor is that practical. All right. Nor is that the answer. The answer is that there needs to be a comprehensive cleanup with regard to the ways in which laws, the landscape has changed. The government is relying on public corruption by the people. So laws need to change to disincentivize cooperating with that corrupt government. Or these corrupt government actors, they need to be removed. They must be removed. Confidence in the government has to be restored. That's the only way to even begin to address that and achieve that. That's the only way to even approach that. It's crucial. It's literally mandatory. It's necessary. It's inevitable. All right, so I do want to speak to the creep, the demon, the sex offender that is coming from Ontario International Airport, hovering from a great distance at the airport because you're not taking off and then at over the roof of the Woodside Senior Apartments, miles away from the airport where you're taking off. As clearly as you see them taking off, increasing in elevation over Woodside Senior Apartments, by the time you're taking off at the Ontario Airport from Terminal 2, Terminal 4, which is not causing you to fly in a direction which would be northwest to be over Woodside Senior Apartments and then rising in elevation, it's very unintelligent, clearly targeting me. And it's very foolish to engage in it's exposing the mentally ill. Group stalking your own prosecutor. All right. Like I said, this is an unfortunate series of facts revealing what Satan has been doing amongst it's just a bully system. People that, how is this happening? Because people that don't have a voice like me, they're not able to speak for themselves. They didn't have the skill set. They're not necessarily able to break down this psychotic, satanic behavior that they're surrounded by. Who's going to believe that planes are following you from place to place, but for evidence? And even more than just stalking with the planes, you're looking at, there's a whole pattern of conduct and it is shown through the unnatural environment. Then you can get to where you're in a position where you can speak to, okay, now you believe me? They're following from place to place. Well, the ordinary target individual does not have that. They're sitting around in this country somewhere kidnapped right now. Yes, it is infuriating to me. Absolutely. Absolutely. There has to be a change with regard to the ways in which laws are enforced and created, mindful of the fact that public corruption in the states who are targeting American citizens is a real thing. And that which is designed with that in mind to disincentivize that sort of criminal enterprise amongst the constituents of the state and the entity itself. All right. I'm going to include the videos. Like I said, I'm describing what it is that you can see in the video, obviously. So if you want to look at that, it will be published on the YouTube channel, which is evidence. And it's also the exposure of the state of California. And it will also be shared to the Google Drive, which I share the link to that in the description for the podcast. Right. The entity is engaged in ongoing threatening behavior. So understand the sex offender that's group stalking inside of apartment 55. This is a third party. The third party represents the state. The third party represents the entire state. The government is acting through one person in your path. The government is acting through all of those who are surrounding you at the same time. And it's the same thing spiritually speaking. All right. So an entity that this is a demonic. This is a demonically influenced person that's monitoring what's going on, which is so the police department's monitoring, the fire department, all of the state is knows exactly what I'm doing on the internet, knows exactly what I'm doing on my phone. Okay. With regard to documentation, that's why also they're so interested, besides the fact that there are a bunch of stalkers in California and there's a surveillance system that you yourself are subject to as well. It's not just that. They're very interested in what I, Erica Lorraine Spencer, am publishing about the fact that they're demons and that they're also violent sex offenders groups stalking, targeting me because I don't fit into their satanic club, nor will I ever conform. That's why they're targeting me in particular. So they're all aware of that. And while a demon is aware of that, this is a demon sharing a spirit. Okay. So the spirit reacts by monitoring. Okay. So this is, again, while I'm publishing video documentation onto YouTube, ongoing amplification. Amplification is speaking to the intent to criminally monitor. It's not free or constitutionally protected conduct when you're living at a facilitating venue and it's occurring in, with simultaneity to what I'm doing on the line, doing online, which just so happens to be documenting you, demon. All right. Even as I'm not documenting that particular third party, I'm documenting San Bernardino County Fire Department, for example. But what does San Bernardino County Fire Department and this demon in apartment 55 have in common? First of all, it's the same state of California. It's the same entity. Second of all, I'm exposing the same satanic spirit. And that's why this demon that is monitoring is demonstrating hostility while the amplified audible activity increases in volume as I'm documenting the demons of the San Bernardino County Fire Department. Group stalking me in San Bernardino on October 16, 2019. All right. And it's on video. It's published onto YouTube. This demon that's group stalking me in apartment 55 in concert with the rest of the state is the same spirit. You're dealing with the spirit. This is the criminalization of the satanic system. All right. And that's where you're getting that. Why is this third party? And this is just giving you analysis. Why would a third party, you don't even work for it. Does your daddy work for the San Bernardino County Fire Department? Why are you? And I'm telling you why. It's because it's the same spirit. You're dealing with Satan. Satan is using a population. Satan is hostile when you name any of his chief of police. Satan is hostile when you identify him in fact. And Satan is a spirit. Understand? So when you identify these demons as sex offenders, which is exactly what you are based on what you're doing as a pattern of conduct. Satan doesn't like that, though. Satan cannot stand the truth. Satan cannot contend with facts. Satan cannot deal with facts. That's why Satan engages in things, the pattern of conduct, including defamation, just making up the information, by the way, just making it up. All right. Doing so with regard, that requires you're not looking into the truth, the veracity of what the state knows that. The state knows that. The state is literally abusing the authority that it has been given as a matter of trust by an American citizen like myself. I should be able to trust the city police. I should be able to go and talk to them about, what's going on with, criminal threats by my neighbor, if that's the case. And I shouldn't have to be worried about the fact, well, the police are actually acting with that neighbor. And it's a threat to my life because they're engaged in the same conduct and the police may very well hurt me and then make up some narrative about why they felt like they had the right under their execution of their duty as a police officer to hurt me. Because that's what group stalking is. That's the threat posed to you while the police are group stalking you. And they control the narrative. That's entirely a tragic injustice. All right. But it's very, it's not only is it disconcerting, yes, it's alarming, it's disturbing, but it's just disheartening. It's just disheartening because you're supposed to be able to trust your police because that's exactly how they want you to feel. That's exactly what you'll see when you read their policy manuals and the beautiful oaths that they write out. They're so proud to these demons are so far from that. It is not even funny. It is not even funny. All right. The beast-like, animalistic, criminal, and sexually violent, psychotic behaviors of demons is what is underway by the Ontario Police Department. That is shameful, and it's literally supported by evidence. It's supported by evidence. It's not just some hyperbolic commentary. It's not just some person opining, exercising my I have the right to say whatever it is that I think. This isn't about what I think. It's about what the evidence shows. And it's a pattern of conduct that just so happens to be demonic. It just so happens to be the commission of a sex offense by an entity that's going to be appreciated under federal law. It's going to be appreciated under federal law. So I'm going to digress here. It's currently 4:11 a.m. Following this discussion is the video evidence capturing group stalking by the Ontario Police Department in the first video and the Ontario International Airport. And before I do, I captured another video as well. And before I do that, I just want to speak to, again, at Ontario International Airport begins group stalking audibly because the entity is maintaining aerial surveillance 24/7. And that's what's so, it does sound unbelievable because, first of all, I mean, when I first documented, why would you be pulling out helicopters? Little old me. Why? That is, wow, that's a lot. Okay. The level of surveillance is that unbelievable, but that's literally what they're doing. They're engaged in 24-hour, very hovering, obsessive level of surveillance, using planes and helicopters and the constituents, the people that surround, all they're doing. And you know that because you're looking at, they're all under a fake sun. So you're looking at mentally ill people who want to fool you as though they're just going about life randomly, disinterested in you. They're all stalking you together. They're stalking you in your path. They're stalking you with light activity, methods of light activity, which is accomplished by merely moving around in that engineer light. While they walk by you on the sidewalk, under that fake sun, they're monitoring you. It's creating light activity. The entity is doing so while they are maintaining methods of audible activity. Okay. That's the level of demonic conduct, demonic activity that's occurring in the spirit that you can't necessarily see with the naked eye. Right. But with regard to the P.O.C, it's providing tangible evidence that everyone, you don't have to have some sort of spiritual, some weird, you don't have to have any, and excuse me, because having spiritual gifts is nothing that's weird. But I just mean with regard to, I'm relating to any intellectual, I'm relating to any person who wants to just reason. I love logic. Okay. We can use facts and evidence that we can all see, touch, feel, hear. That's what I mean. You are not a weirdo. You're certainly not mentally ill, and you have no issues or defects with regard to your spiritual gifts that are God-given. But I just want to be clear, spiritual gifts that are not used for the Lord Jesus Christ. Just want to be clear, you're employing the demonic. You're working for Satan. There's only one God. And if you're not using that which you've been given as a gift for his glory, for his purposes, then you are the only other option is that you are serving darkness. You're in service to darkness. So I just want to be clear. You can have spiritual gifts and be fully operating in darkness. What do you think the demons are doing? What do you think witches and warlocks are doing? That's exactly what that is. Spiritual gifts employed in service to Satan. All right. So nonetheless, I don't under any circumstances want to state that you're a weirdo. What I'm stating with that, I'm stating we don't have to sit around like engaging in any sort of spiritual pontificate. We don't have to pontificate about any of that. This is a prosecution. And I know how to prosecute. It's with tangible evidence, facts, okay, that you can see, witness. Everyone can see the P.O.C. You can witness it for yourself, and the evidence speaks for itself. You don't have to listen to me say a word. All right. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct and doing so with regard to a high level of malice. And so the Ontario International Airport, with regard to failing, because all you're doing is incriminating this demon who's going to federal prison in Apartment 55 and everybody else, 33 through 64, all of those sex offenders in those units, they're all going to federal prison. And the evidence of their criminal engagement in the P.O.C. is literally their lease. Okay. The entity is engaged in a pattern of conduct and is doing so on a systematic basis. And as I'm documenting the people pursuant to that same pattern of conduct with the intent to harass and terrorize as an entity that's engaged in federal stalking, an admitted violent sex offender, monitoring a woman, stalking a woman, keeping a woman under surveillance inside of an apartment at all times. Okay. Amongst the whole population. That's an exceedingly violent sex offense. And they're doing so using commercial planes. And at 2:12 a.m., you'll see in the document called WSA-the People, I'm expounding a lot and describing all of the ways in which you are analyzing and understanding and framing what this sex offender in Apartment 55 is engaged in while she's monitoring. And the audible activity gets louder and louder. The more that I type, the louder that the demon gets. Okay. The more that I type, the more furious her pacing becomes. And the fact that I can hear it is ongoing terrorism. You're literally going to prosecute for the demonic environment that these stalkers keep you surrounded by. You're going to prosecute for that. It's relevant to psychological torture. You're going to prosecute for that. It's a part of the documentation. While the entity is literally stalking you physically in that demonic environment. So while I'm documenting in the document entitled WSA-the People, 2:12 a.m., the entity is employing both the Ontario train, which you can hear it in the video. It's an admission to group stalking by the state. You cannot hear the city train inside of the apartment, or let alone at that. It's amplification. And the ongoing context is the presence of the light source for the duration of the day. Literally at nightfall, my shadow is surrounding my person. That's not the product of the artificial light on the buildings, on the property. That's speaking to the intent to maintain the elements of monitoring audible activity in that engineer light while I'm being physically surrounded. All those demons are inside of all their apartments. And I want to be clear, contrary to what you're looking at, nobody's walking outside. Nobody's driving. They're all group stalking. By the way, in case you did not know, there is no rest. There's no peace for the wicked. Those that are engaged in obsessive group stalking, they're not actually taking naps. They're not actually sleeping. They're maintaining the elements of monitoring. They're as an entity. And this specific environment is the evidence of that, not because all the lights in your apartment are off. Okay? The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, which you'll see on video, and at 2:12 a.m., Ontario International Airport provides corroborating evidence against the state while they're hovering over the Woodside Senior Apartments at 2:12 in the morning. Based on their knowledge, because it's not a coincidence that they do so pursuant to a pattern while you document the people, so the demons arrive, and I put that in air quotes, in helicopters and in airplanes. That's with the intent to obstruct justice. They want to horrify you, terrorize you, harass you, threaten you, intimidate you. They do so as an entity while they're engaged in federal stalking. That's the P.O.C. That's the P.O.C. They engage these mentally ill demons. They engage in the same exact cycle of behavior over and over and over again. All right. The entity is doing so at 2:12 a.m. I'm engaged in ongoing typing of documentation on my phone. 2:34 a.m., 2:36 a.m. ongoing plane activity. 2:42 a.m. ongoing plane activity. And those are just the times that I noted. I did go ahead and get up and capture video. I also captured screenshots, and I want to look at that right now regarding okay, good. You could still hear me regarding the took a screenshot of the Ontario International Airport, the departures, for example. The departures on October 31st, United Airlines departing from what would be gate 203 on time. As I checked it, at 5:15 in the morning. That's the earliest flight that's scheduled to depart from the Ontario International Airport. Southwest Airlines at 5:30 a.m. At going to Denver, Colorado from gate 403. Frontier Airlines at 5:45 a.m. Going to San Francisco at from gate 210. They have two terminals at the Ontario International Airport, Terminal 2 and Terminal 4. And the only reason why I'm referencing this is because the entity is engaging in what is the use of commercial planes from an airport. The entity would like to appear on the surface as though they're engaged in ordinary business every day. Nothing to see here, folks. We fly over senior citizen communities at 2 o'clock, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, as I'm documenting the P.O.C. Whatever it is, at whatever time that they're doing, it's a part of what is their business. And if not a part of their scheduled published times of arrivals and departures, then I surmise they're just for fun blowing gas and flying over the senior citizen community, which also happens to be a multi-family residential zoning area and specifically a senior citizen, a 55 plus community. The volume of the planes, the elevation of the planes are that which are also uncharacteristic of that which is going to happen with regard to the ordinary business operations of an airport and of the zoning area. This is built into the planning, the conduct, that the agreements between the city and the airports when you're conducting your business. The reason why these sorts of details, which is not, this is not rocket science, the type of surface level analysis that I'm giving you right now, just looking at the time, taking a screenshot of the departures, which the earliest is going to be 5 a.m. And by the way, where they're flying to Denver, where they're flying to San Francisco and Phoenix and Salt Lake City, Delta Airlines, Southwest, Frontier, United Airlines from Terminal 2 or Terminal 4, none of it is going to include hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments in the ways that I'm showing you. When they're taking off from the plane, I've been on, like I said, I've traveled the country. I've never been on a commercial plane flying anywhere where they're taking off from the airport. I'm laughing because it's preposterous. Group stalking, however, is not funny. But like I said, I'm continuously exposing Satan and exposing the asininity of the specific environment, the asininity of demons who thought that they were so intelligent by merely because of the fact these gangs, they act with the superficial strength of numerosity. So in other words, because they're a gang, all of the gangs lie together, and that makes truth. All the gangs engage in this clearly asinine behavior, and that makes it normal. That's the logic behind gang stalking, behind this group think type of conduct. So you're all engaging in unintelligent, clearly illogical, clearly criminal and bankrupt conduct, and only in a demon's mind, only in a mentally ill person's mindset does that equal normal or lawful or and something that's anything other than alarming, because it doesn't. And neither is the federal government going to see that. And neither will any other normal person exercising any measure of independent thought. They're going to see it the exact same way. This is common sense. This is exposing what demons rely on. They engage in gang conduct in every regard, including while you're clearly abusing the use of an airport to engage in psychological torture and group stalking criminal surveillance. Because you're thinking that while you're group stalking me, you're going to harass and terrorize me more with that specific intent by arriving in planes because I'm documenting you. I want to be clear. The sex offender at 4:23 a.m. amplifying audible activity while she's listening to me break down the illogical illogical groupthink conduct of the unintelligent entity that's group stalking in California. All right. So as I speak to that, the demon in 55, she's going to federal prison. You've seen her images so much. She's a demon that's group stalking on video under the fake sun in the parking lot. An engineered light, because never is sunlight ricocheting off of your car at a distance away from you, dragging across any surface, let alone the brick wall at Woodside Senior Apartments. That sex offender is acting with impunity, with knowledge of the fact that I'm exposing her idiocy while she's group stalking me. And the entity failed to exercise any independent thought while they think that the government can protect them, and they can't. And also it fails with regard to the actual logic of how highly unintelligent the behavior is, whether you have 200 people engage in unintelligent conduct or whether you have one person engage in unintelligent conduct. It remains unintelligent and criminal, period. Because it's group stalking. All right, but this is the satanic behavior of the entity that's just merely bullying. This is the abuse of power by the government. This is abuse of authority by the state. All right, and so the gangs engage in their P.O.C, and then the government itself puts its stamp of seal over it, and nobody questions it. All right, and that's exactly what's going to be disrupted in the state of California. All right. So just want to make sure that I'm speaking to that. It's currently 4:25 a.m. where this sex offender at 4 o'clock in the morning is obsessively stalking me. And she's equally obsessed with my genitalia. And that's exactly why she will not be helped with paying her rent after she gets out of federal prison. Okay. And the impunity that she acts with is notable with regard to sentencing, putting her and every other sex offender who's acting with the same level, same measure of impunity while she's monitoring evidence, which the federal government is going to review and be personally mindful of it when you're being sentenced. You disregarded the rights of another. You did not care that you were given a hint that you might be going to federal prison for it. So don't cry in front of my face in federal court today. No one wants to hear it. No one is going to hear it. All right. And you're also not going to be supported with any housing benefits. Okay. No sex offender, no violent terrorist, like I'm documenting, the people of the state will be supported and aided in such a manner, which is affecting the ways in which laws are created, housing policies to support the population in California that is engaged in state surveillance, acting to murder and kidnap American citizens with the corrupt government. This is one of many policies that are to be affected, to be changed, to be altered based on what the state is doing with the people. All right. It is currently 4:26 a.m. And following is going to be the videos that I captured of terrorism that I remain subject to while I'm being kept under surveillance by the state of California that is aware of the fact that I'm enforcing my rights, that is documenting it. And the government has continuously communicated an unlawful threat to my life and safety and liberty based on continuously engaging in that criminal offense in violation of my constitutional and human rights. And the federal government is going to prosecute mindful of that as well. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, as I upload the voice for the podcast, the sex offender, which represents the people of the state. This is ongoing impunity. This is relevant to the damages that the group stalker AVANATH, Capital Management LLC, who's criminally profiting while group stalking with this sex offender, with the people of the state living at Woodside Senior Apartments, with the state that's flying over Woodside Senior Apartments. AVANATH is fully engaged in the P.O.C. I'm going to drain AVANATH's pockets, but this sex offender, again, her license is 5WUB 715. This is a mentally ill sex offender. This is a threat to the public. She's criminally monitoring the evidence against her, against the state. This is terrorizing an American citizen. This is ongoing terrorism that is continuously underway while the state is engaging in keeping you under surveillance. The state continuously engages in violating your right to be free from that criminal system, threatening your life while you are enforcing your rights. And that is also why she is indeed going to federal prison. I just wanted to add this snippet to the end of this video, to the end of my podcast while I took a screenshot. It's 4:32 a.m. and it's with simultaneity. So as I switch from the Samsung Notes, that's the app that I'm using to record it. And so I go from Samsung Notes just to break down my operation of my communication device, which a demon knows as you switch apps, as you engage in a new function, as you engage in a new movement. Demons that are monitoring your movement, demons that are monitoring everything you do, they create activity. Ongoing noise is activity. So this demon, her walking around is the impossible audible activity creation is speaking to an intent, and the under all circumstances, it's amplified audible activity. The state is group stalking. The state is group stalking with this sex offender in apartment 55 at Woodside Senior Apartments, where my shadow is surrounding my person all over the ground and upright on the walls. She is indeed engaged in group stalking with the Ontario police, who are group stalking as I captured on video. She is indeed going to federal prison in concert with that state while she is monitoring evidence that she is fully aware that is being captured. And again, this is why violent sex offenders like this third party shall not be supported in housing benefits. They won't even be able to threaten the life and safety and sexually violate and offend others while they are living, for example, in an apartment complex. This is exactly what's going to be remedied by the prosecution, by the criminal record for domestic terrorism on the basis of federal group stalking and monitoring in the U.S. In addition, the impunity itself is relevant for the damages to be awarded, designed to literally punish, if not literally destroy. And by destroy, I mean you are subject to such a punitive level of damages that perhaps your company doesn't exist, and that's justice. That's one less corrupt company, and that's the damages are designed to be punitive. The damages are designed to be a deterrent for not only the constituents of the state, the people of the state, but also such commercial actors such as AVANATH, who are fully accountable for what the demons who are paying them rent, while the demons who are the company themselves are group stalking together. This is what a statewide system is doing. So you're punishing all aspects of that system. So I just want to document that. It's 4:34 a.m. I'm subject to ongoing terrorism. The group stalker is monitoring literally the evidence of the group stalking system that you're subject to. This is protecting the mind state, protecting the physical safety, the liberty, the well-being of the ordinary target individual. As I am documenting, I am prosecuting for the ongoing ceaseless system that you're subject to, and speaking to it and advocating on behalf of that person, and literally prosecuting it to understand the severity of what the entity is doing, and the knowledge that the entity has while it chooses to do it. Okay, this is impunity that this is a senior citizen. This is a psychopath and a sex offender, and her up close images, her license plate, her group stalking conduct, replete with terrorism via directed light, moving all across the parking lot, brick wall while you're just driving your dirty car. It's not sunlight ever. This is malice, and it's also malice with regard to monitoring and terrorizing and threatening me, and sexually violating me on behalf of the state in concert with the people of the state, while she's also engaged in federal stalking. Remember, she represents the people. She represents the entire state. You only need one person group stalking with the state. The state is acting with the entire population. All right, it is currently 4:35 a.m. It's still October 31st, 2024. It is indeed 4:35 a.m. And this is documentation of what I continuously capture in the document entitled WSA-The People. It's literally second by minute by minute. This is all the demons do all day long. It's absolutely psychotic. So the entity is just engaging in ongoing stalking with noise. That's terrorism by an entity. It's inherently designed to psychologically torture. It's inherently designed to harass you. It's supposed to stop and bully the targeted individual. You're going to prosecute for that. You're going to inflict damages that are designed to devastate that corrupt company, to punish with regard to losing your all of the privileges that somebody who was not a sex offender and a terrorist would be entitled to, such as low-income housing benefits. Oh, you can't pay your rent? Well, the state would love to help you, but this sex offender and the likes of her will never be aided by the state and federal government, and that's if she survives federal prison. Okay? It's 4:36 a.m. This is P.O.C. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes, and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C., and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state. And it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Ontario International is repeatedly flying over the senior citizen complex. It's over 2 o'clock in the morning. This is called amplification, and it's heard inside of the apartment. That's impossible audible activity. There is no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4. That is an explanation for hovering at this low elevation. And also while you're looking at it, it's also amplified. This is demonic activity. And it's occurring in engineered light, which I'll also show you. Alan D. WAPNER is a demon-possessed sex-offending group stalker sitting on the Ontario City Council. He's fully aware of the criminal conduct that the Ontario International Airport is engaging in concert with the demons, the sex offenders who are group stalking by plane and helicopter over a senior citizen complex. This is a multi-family residential zone, and they're monitoring the evidence of the sex offender in apartment 55. She's going to federal prison. Her license plate is 5WUV715. She acts with impunity, stomping on the ceiling right above my head in the living room. That's a demon and a sex offender, a third party who's group stalking with the Ontario International Airport, who employ planes and helicopter, by the way. That's what that was over there, and it's amplified in volume. Amplification is demonic, and so is engineered light. Here's my shadow right here. And here's my other shadow right here in front of me. I've got multiple shadows right here. This is demonic light. There's my shadow. This is the same light activity under the fake sun during the day. That's not the product of lights on the walls. Okay, that's demonic. The amplification, the sound of planes and helicopter. Also, it's common sense. This is a senior citizen community. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They're harassing and terrorizing while this demon, this sex offender, is being documented. She's targeting, monitoring what I'm doing online in violation of Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. And she does so with impunity. And she does so on behalf of all of the entity. Everybody living in units 33 through 64, this building and this building, they're all going to federal prison. Their group stalking as one. These demons are hiding inside of their apartments. They're not sleeping while state surveillance is underway. You're not sleeping while the engineer light remains present. You're not sleeping while the entity is stalking by plane and helicopter. Mike LORENZ is the terrorist leader. He's going to be removed from the position that he holds. The Ontario Police Department is going to be disbanded. Alan D. WAPNER is going to be removed. This is a demon and a closeted sex offender that's sitting on the Ontario Council Board, a council member who is the president of the Ontario International Airport, who are centering around the airport operations. There's no scheduled flights. There's no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 that results in hovering over a senior citizen complex over this 2500 Airport Drive, 2900 Airport Drive is nowhere near 408 West G Street over the senior citizen community. They're stalking in planes and helicopters in conformity to the long documented pattern of conduct. Alan D. WAPNER is worthy of federal prison. I want to be clear. They engage in federal group stalking and monitoring because they intend to murder you. They intend to kidnap you. They do so with commercial planes, seeking to psychologically harm you so that they can kidnap you, okay, and claim that you are hallucinating because you're claiming that planes are stalking. They are, in fact, stalking in California using commercial planes. And the person over that operation, the president, is fully engaged in that criminal system. He's a group stalker by virtue of the airport engaging in group stalking. Understand it. It's criminal facilitation. The sound of the planes and helicopters inside of the apartment is amplification. It's P.O.C. And there is no explanation for the entity hovering over Woodside, a senior citizen apartment, at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're doing so repeatedly. It's 2:27. The documentation is showing on and on repeated pacing over the property in the manner that I just showed you. And the volume competing with my voice that's at that low elevation. These are demons that are stalking. And they're doing the same thing under the fake sun that remains over Woodside Senior Apartments as a matter of duration of time from 7:18 in the morning until 6:27 in the evening. That's not the sun, nor is this the natural light activity where you're seeing my shadow on all sides around my person. These are demons who are flying commercial planes. The licensure, the ability to get licenses in California is going to be affected by virtue of the state of California group stalking using commercial planes and helicopters as well. That's the corrupt terrorist organizations, the police. Ontario Police is going to be disbanded. The condition of that person flying the plane, that's a demon-possessed person, and they're stalking an American citizen. Myself, they're doing so in this specific environment. They're doing so to the pattern of conduct. And by virtue of being at this elevation, the Ontario International Airport is nowhere where you're flying west over Woodside Senior Apartments on the 2500 and 2900 Airport Drive. It's nowhere near here, and you're immediately taking off from the airport. There is no explanation other than clearly targeting, which you know because of the fake sun that's rising on this side, setting on this side of apartment 51, which is the P.O.C, the statewide pattern of conduct. All right, it is currently, again, 2:29 a.m. The Ontario International Airport in Alan D. WAPNER, the airport is going to be subject to the prosecution, and there will be federal imprisonment of the people of the state group stalking. The city of Ontario is group stalking, and this is how Ontario is engaging in it. It is, again, 2:29 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, the entity is amplifying plane activity again inside of the apartment. It's over the television while I'm in the depths of the apartment. That's called amplification. That's amplified audible activity. And engineered light, that's P.O.C. That's what the entity does with helicopters, okay? That's P.O.C. That's hovering again, and they're repeatedly as of 2 a.m. They did so as of 2 a.m. because I started focusing in on the sex offender who is going to federal prison. She's the 55-plus senior citizen group stalking at Woodside Senior Apartments, the specific environment. There is no elevation where you're taking off over the Woodside Senior Apartments, okay? So you could just look at the map where Ontario International Airport is. They're flying west in the direction, the volume, the elevation, they're clearly targeting. You also know this common sense because the fake sun is over this apartment complex and the engineer light is 24/7. That's why I have multiple shadows back. You can see all these shadows. This is not the product of these porch lights, okay? Ontario International Airport is indeed engaged in impunity. That's relevant to the ways in which you're going to prosecute the state. The entity's been engaged in stalking using planes. You can look at the body of evidence that is being uploaded to YouTube, by the way, as of 2018 to 2022. And then the 2024 documentation, stalking by planes and helicopters, is a staple. It is literally a hallmark. That's why over a senior citizen community, it is uncharacteristic of a multifamily resident zoning area. The elevation, the frequency, the ongoing substantial disruption to quiet enjoyment, etc. It's also occurring in a specific environment where the fake sun is rising and setting. My shadow is all over the place. Okay, this has nothing to do with the light. Okay, that's a sex offender. She's going to federal prison. She's acting on behalf of the entity. This is a chief means of amplified audible activity. As you focus in on a demon, as you focus on a third party, the entity engages in stalking you in helicopters. The entity engages in stalking you in planes. Alan D. WAPNER will not remain as a president over a corrupt airport that's engaged in psychological torture. Because that's what that's relevant to. That's why you stalk somebody in planes in such an unheard of manner, because it's supposed to result in that American citizens being criminally defamed. The people of the state and the state will be subject to federal prison for group stalking in helicopters with corrupt terrorist organizations like the Ontario Police, and for group stalking in commercial planes and in planes, which the government uses. Commercial planes are indicative of the corrupt airports in California that are engaged in state surveillance, which the body of evidence shows. Again, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, specifically 2:45. The location where you're seeing the planes, it's on its face where you're seeing it, it's not going to be heard inside of this apartment. This is demonic activity. But secondly, just the common sense analysis, the entities engaging in what is hovering down over the senior citizen community, nowhere near coming from appearing as though you're engaged in ordinary airport conduct. There's no airport departures or coming from the Ontario International Airport. The earliest is 5 o'clock in the morning. And there's also no vantage point where you're flying, taking off from the airport and then hovering to be at 408 West G Street and to be at that low elevation as though you're coming from the airport and then hunkered down at that elevation and then taking off again. It is clearly targeting, which you know through the amplification, you know through the engineered light, you know through the maintenance of the fake sun all day long. This is what the entity is doing repeatedly, and that is the same pattern of conduct. The mental illness of the demon possessed is shown through their repeated engagement in that pattern of conduct, which is clearly incriminating them, and all the people of the state are going to federal prison because the state's group stalking with them. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is called audible activity and engineered light. They're also engaged in federal stalking. The Ontario International Airport, AVANATH communities, the people of the state, the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Fire Department, the City of Ontario in general is going to be prosecuted. This is Okay, this is what they're doing under the fake sun during the day. They're flying at a higher elevation than the fake sun that you saw hovering down directly over the edge of this building the other day. They're stalking in planes in California, and those are demons that are doing so. Okay, the entity is engaging in conduct as though the volume is lessening because they're going higher up in elevation. There's no airport that's behind the this apartment complex. The Ontario International Airport, when you are rising in elevation right here, coming from the airport, you would already be at an elevation. No one's going to hear you. You're not going to violate anybody's quiet enjoyment. You're not moving into a 55 plus senior citizen community because you're going to be repeatedly, systematically disrupted with planes hovering over the property. Okay, and the reason why the helicopters and the planes are happening is because the people of the state are living at a facilitated venue. They're all going to federal prison. Apartments 33 through 64 are fully engaged in state surveillance, and they chiefly rely on this sex offender in 55. The Ontario train is not possible to be heard. That's another method of audible activity and engineered light. You're witnessing state surveillance. The state that's employing trains and planes and helicopters, it's implicating interstate commerce. It's implicating the state. You are literally telling on the state while the entity uses such openly demonic, because you can't hear the train and the ongoing amplification of planes that are clearly deviating from anywhere near the Ontario International Airport in order to be over a senior citizen complex. The trains heard inside of the apartment, the planes are heard inside of the apartment, the helicopters that they're heard inside of the apartment, and the Ontario Police heavily stalking over Ontario Woodside Senior Apartments is fully documented for years, and they're group stalking now while the Ontario International Airport is using planes to do so. All the entity is doing, as you're learning, they're just vacillating methods of engaging in the same exact P.O.C, audible activity, light activity, relevant positioning. Relevant positioning is accomplished by the demons that are living at Woodside. The senior citizen community at Woodside, they're going to federal prison. Every single last one of them. And beyond this community, the demons, for example, living at 325 West G Street, the demons living in 717 North Vine Avenue, the entity is going to be prosecuted for what I'm documenting right now. This is gang stalking in California. It is currently 2:48 a.m. That's criminal presence by the state that's engaged in surveillance using planes. It's not within the lawful use of their commercial planes. It's not lawful conduct, and also a common sense breakdown of what you're doing, clearly targeting using planes. And the entity engages in impunity while doing so, while you're documenting them. They're hovering right over as though they're taking off here. There's no taking off from right here. They're hovering right over Woodside Senior because they're stalking. They're flying right over near the apartment complex, and they're hovering right above and as though they're taking off here. These are demons who are stalking from the Ontario International Airport. Alan D. Wapner will not remain as a president over the Ontario International Airport, and he's also going to be removed from the position that he's holding. He's a demon, a closeted sex offender, and a stalker who is sitting on the council, the Ontario City Council. In case you do not know, the Ontario City Hall, the Ontario City Council, they're a bunch of group stalking demons in Ontario. And that's why the Ontario International Airport is engaged in group stalking with the state. This is P.O.C. The entity employed the planes and the trains while I'm documenting, all of what I'm documenting is being monitored because this sex offender who's going to federal prison is being documented on my phone. The entity engages in that pattern of conduct with the intent to harass and terrorize. You can see them hovering over the senior citizen complex, clearly stalking in planes. This is P.O.C. It's currently 2:50 a.m. The entity is engaged in that sort of pacing, this frequency, sent as of 2 a.m. because I'm documenting this sex offender in apartment 55. 55 represents the people. It is a chief means of amplified audible activity inside of this apartment. They are engaged in criminal conduct, living in a specific environment, not a private residential area, and not a private residential apartment complex. The state's pattern of conduct, which is demonic and malicious, by an entity that's using planes hovering over the venue. It's incriminating everyone. This is P.O.C.